Hello guys, welcome to another session of surface chemistry. In this session, I will be discussing about properties of colloidal solution and particle. Let's start with properties. So first property of colloidal solution is colligative property. Okay, if you remember what are colligative property, colligative properties are the ones which depend on the amount of substance which is added. Okay, so colloidal particles, since they are bigger in size, the number of particles which are in colloidal solution is comparatively small as compared to true solution. So we talk about colligative property, that is lowering of vapor pressure, elevation in boiling point, depression of freezing point, and osmotic pressure. Okay, so these properties are affected, but as compared to true solution, they are actually less affected. Okay, so some graph just to refresh your memory. Okay, so this is colligative property which we have gone through in solutions chapter. Okay, now, second property is Tyndall effect. So Tyndall effect is very important, okay, because this is an exam question. So what happens is, if there is a homogeneous solution which is placed in dark and it is observed, okay, so homogeneous solution of colloid particle is there, okay. So in the direction of light, it appears clear. Okay, basically you can see that it's a clear solution, but when you observe from a direction which is right angle to the direction of light beam, it appears perfectly dark. Now this phenomena, okay, is known as Tyndall effect, and the bright cone of light is known as Tyndall cone. You can see that if this is the lens which is used to focus, so this cone is known as Tyndall cone. So what happens here, the particle which is present inside is scattering the light. So if you see from this side, you are able to see it's a clear solution, but if you see from 90-degree angle or perpendicular to it, you see a dark solution. Okay, so this is Tyndall effect. Now, this Tyndall effect is due to the fact that colloidal particles scatter light in all direction in space. So it requires the following conditions to be satisfied. One of the following condition is the diameter of the dispersed particle is not much smaller than the wavelength of light used. And the second condition is the refractive indices, that is mu of the two surfaces, not surfaces, two phases, that is dispersed phase and dispersion medium, differ greatly in magnitude. So they should have huge difference between refractive index and very less difference between the wavelength and the diameter of the particle. Okay, so application is the projection of picture in cinema hall is due to scattering of light by dust and smoke particles. So if you remember the pictures or in a cinema hall, the light is coming from behind. So that is the image is seen on the screen. Okay, because of that, because the light is scattered. So if you see perpendicular to it, like for example, you are sitting here. Okay, so you are able to see the picture clearly. Okay, but if you are at a right angle, you are not able to see the screen, that is of the movie hall. And it is also used to distinguish between colloidal and true solution, because this Tyndall effect is not shown by true solution. Okay, with true solutions are the one where the particle size is very small, so only colloidal solutions show this Tyndall effect. Next is color. Okay, the color of the colloidal solution depends on the wavelength of light scattered by the dispersed particles. Very important. So the color is shown by the wavelength. So basically it depends on the wavelength. The wavelength of light further depends on size and nature of particle. Okay, so wavelength depends on size and nature of particle. So obviously the color of the colloidal solution changes with the manner in which observer also receives the light. Like just to give you an example, a mixture of milk and water, it appears blue in reflected light and it appears red when viewed by the transmitted light. Another example, the finest gold sol is red in color. As the size of the particle increase, basically you are increasing the size, particle size, it appears purple and then blue and then finally golden. So it depends on the particle size. Okay, and it also depends from the observer point of view, that if you are viewing in reflected light or if you are viewing it in transmitted light. So this is another property which is shown by colloidal particle or colloidal solutions. Next property is Brownian moment. Brownian moment is basically the zigzag motion. Okay, under a powerful ultramicroscope, you can see the colloidal particle appear to be in state of continuous zigzag motion. So they are not stationary; they are always moving in zigzag manner. Okay, overall, all over the field of view, and this movement is known as Brownian moment. Now, this motion is independent of nature of colloid but depends on size of the particle and viscosity of the solution. So if the particle size is bigger, the movement will be slower. If viscosity of the solution is very high, the movement will be very slow. Okay, so if you can see, this is the particle which is going here, hitting something, hitting something, hitting something again, again hitting something. So it is always having such type of motion. So this is actually also responsible for stability of the sol. Okay, so also smaller the size, lesser the viscosity, faster is the motion. So small size of the particle, less will be the viscosity. Okay, like if viscosity is also less, particle size is also small, faster is going to be the motion. Okay, explanation is due to the unbalanced bombardment of particle by molecules of dispersion medium, the Brownian moment has a steering effect. So it is always steering it, which does not permit the particles to settle, and thus it is responsible for stability of sol. Okay. Next is charge on colloidal particle. Very, very important and very, very conceptual. Okay, so please focus here. Now, colloidal particles always carry an electric charge. The charge on the Sol particle is due to one of the three reasons or all the three reasons. First is preferential adsorption of ions from the solution. So some ions, because preferential adsorption means only some ions are getting adsorbed from solution. Or second reason can be electron capture by Sol particle during electrodispersion of metals. Okay. Third reason may be formulation of electrical double layer. Now, note that preferential adsorption of the ion is most accepted reason. So first reason, this one is the most accepted reason. So basically we have two charge, like we always have charge on sol. So let's take some examples. So positively charged sols are, you can see, hydrated metallic oxide. So all these hydrated metallic oxide are positively charged sol. Same way, basic dye stuff, that is methylene blue sol, is again positively charged. Hemoglobin, blood, which is present inside blood, is again positively charged sol. Oxides like TiO2 sol is also positively charged. Then negatively charged sols, examples are some metals like copper, silver, gold sols, they are negatively charged. Metallic sulfides, you can see metal, sulfur, metal, sulfide, metal, sulfide, all these sols are negatively charged. Acid dye stuff, okay, so they are again negatively charged. Salts of starch, gum, gelatin, clay, charcoal, so these are all again negatively charged salts. Now, let us take some example. So silver nitrate, that is AgNO3 solution, is added to potassium iodide solution. Okay, so what happens here is the precipitate of silver iodide. Okay, so the precipitate of silver iodide here. Okay, silver and iodide. What happens? It dissolves iodide ions from the dispersion medium, and negatively charged colloidal solution is resulting. Basically AgI is adsorbing I minus. Okay, so I minus ions are adsorbed on the surface of AgI. Okay, so this becomes negatively charged sol. Same way, if potassium iodide Ai solution is added to silver nitrate AgNO3 solution, what will happen here? Here you will get a positively charged sol, which will be AgI adsorbing Ag plus ions on top of it. Okay, so that is resulting in positively charged sol. Okay, now FeCl3, if it is added to excess of hot water, this also results in adsorption of Fe3 plus ions. So it gives a positively charged sol. Same way, if ferric chloride, that is FeCl3, is added to NaOH, a negatively charged sol is generated because OH minus ions are actually adsorbed on the surface of Fe2O3 dot XS2O. Okay, so a negatively charged sol is generated. So also consider that this is actually the first layer that we are seeing. Okay, first layer of charges. Now, so if they are having having acquired a positive or a negative charge, okay, by selective adsorption, so that is what we have seen. So they did selective adsorption and they acquired a positive or a negative charge. You can see here this was negatively charged, this became positively charged, negatively charged. Okay, so because of different process, they have acquired some charge. Now, if some charges are acquired, okay, so what happens? You can consider this example like AgI is here. It has adsorbed I minus, iodine minus is here. So obviously this will attract some positive charges. Okay. So Ag plus ions are outside. So this is the first layer and this Ag plus is the second layer. Same way, if AgI was there absorbing positive charges or positive ions, then the second layer will be of that of I minus. Okay, so you can see that AgI minus is the first layer and the second layer is K plus. Okay, so basically this negative charge on AgI is attracting a positive charge layer on the top of it. Okay, same way here AgI, Ag plus is attracting a layer of negative charge. So the combination of these two layers of oppositely charged charges of opposite charges around the colloid particle is called Helmholtz electrical double layer. Okay, since this is a negative charge layer, then a positive charge layer, it is double layer, electrical double layer, Helmholtz electrical double layer. Now, according to the modern views, the first layer, that is, let's say in this case it is I minus, okay, that is actually firmly held and also termed as fixed layer. Whereas the second layer, this one that is of Ag plus in this case of I minus, is actually mobile. Okay, so it is also known as diffused layer. So fixed layer and then diffuse layer. Yeah. Now, the potential difference between the fixed layer and the diffuse layer, okay, that is the second layer, is known as electrokinetic potential or zeta potential. Okay, so one is positive layer, the other is negative layer. The potential difference between the positive layer and negative layer, the potential difference is known as your zeta potential or electrokinetic potential. Now, this zeta potential provides stability to the colloidal solution because the repulsive forces between charged particles having same charge prevent them from uh, condensing. Okay, not condensing, actually aggregating. Okay, that is actually coalescing. Okay, that is combining together when they come close to each other. Basically, like another particle will not come close to each other; they will repel each other. Okay, so that's why it adds up to stability. Okay, now next property is electrophoresis. Okay, very simple. Electrophoresis experiment confirms the existence of the colloidal charge on colloidal particle. Now what is this experiment is just this one. So you have an anode, you have a cathode, and you see that there is a movement of colloidal particle. So the movement of colloidal particle under an applied electric potential is called as electrophoresis. So if this happens, we know that obviously our colloidal particles are charged. Okay, so this experiment confirms the presence of charge on colloidal particles. Now, when electrophoresis, that is movement of particles, is prevented, like for example, if I restrict the movement of colloidal particle, okay, I say, okay, particles, you cannot move. Okay, now with some suitable means, it is observed that the dispersion medium, underline this part, dispersion medium begins to move. The medium is moving. Okay, if the medium is moving in an electric field, this phenomena is termed as electroosmosis. Okay, because the medium itself is moving, so this is electroosmosis. Here we are, electrophoresis is movement of colloidal solid particles. If this movement is not allowed, what happens? the movement of dispersion medium begins, and that is electroosmosis. Okay. Next, coagulation or precipitation. Coagulation is same as precipitation. So what happens? They combine together and they settle down. The stability of lyophobic sols is due to the presence of charge on the colloidal particles. Okay, like if somehow this charge is removed, like if you remove that charge, because if all this colloidal particles are positively charged, they will not come close to each other. If they come close to each other, they will repel. Okay, so if somehow you remove this positive charge, what will happen? The particles will come near to each other and they can join, that is they can aggregate and settle down under the force of gravity. Okay, right, because colloidal particles are the particles of bigger size but are not so big that they settle down here. So the process of settling down of colloidal particle is known as coagulation or precipitation of the sol. Okay, now coagulation of lyophobic sol can be done by electrophoresis, because if you remember electrophoresis, what we were doing, we were moving the particles. So the colloidal particles move towards the oppositely charged electrode, they get discharged and gets precipitated. Easy. By mixing two oppositely charged sols, let's say that there is a positive sol and then there is a negative sol. So if you mix them in some proportionate manner, that will be coagulating both the sols, right? So it is called as mutual coagulation. Okay, oppositely charged sols when mixed in almost equal proportion neutralizes their charges and get partially or completely precipitated. Easy. Next is by boiling. What happens when you boil? When a soil is boiled, the adsorb layer is disturbed. Okay, because the energy you are giving is much more. So due to increased collision, so it will collide here and there with the molecules of the dispersion medium. This reduces the charge on the particle and ultimately leads to the settling down in the form of precipitate. Okay. Last method is by persistent dialysis. So basically we are actually doing dialysis but for a very long period of time. If we do it for prolonged period of time, what happens is traces of the electrolyte which are present, okay, because there are some electrolytes which are always adsorbed on the surface of the colloidal particle, which are present, are removed, and almost like they are removed almost completely. Now if you have removed the charged particles from the colloids, what happens? The colloid become unstable and ultimately they coagulate. Okay, so this was about coagulation of lyophobic sols. Now again, another point here is by addition of electrolyte. Okay, like because we know that the our sol particles are charged or colloidal particles are charged. So if you input, like for example, if your colloidal particle is positively charged and you give negative charge to it, so what will happen? They will neutralize each other and then coagulation will happen. So the ion responsible for neutralization of charge on particle is called as coagulating ion. Like if the sol is positively charged, we give negative ions to it to neutralize. If the sol is negatively charged, then we add positively charged ions. So generally, greater the valence of valency of or valence of the flocculating ion is added, the greater is its power to cause the precipitation. Like this is known as Hardy-Stiltz rule. Okay, so basically if you see Arial 3 plus is more powerful than Ba2 plus is more powerful than Na plus. So this is for coagulating a negative sol, because for negative sol we need positive ions, and for coagulating positive sols we need negative ions. So you can see this is -4 power, like the charge is 4 minus, so that's why this is more powerful. Then PO4 3 minus, SO4 2 minus, and least powerful is Cl minus. The minimum concentration of an electrolyte in millimoles per liter required to cause precipitation of a sol in 2 hours. Okay, remember that there is a time frame also. In 2 hours is called as coagulating value. The smaller the quantity needed, the higher will be the coagulating power of the ion. So if you require very small quantity, that means the coagulating power of the ion is very high. Okay. Now, coagulation of lyophilic sol. Okay, so previous case was of lyophobic, all the cases. Now, lyophilic sol. So there are two factors which are responsible for stability of lyophilic sol. One is charge and the second is solvation of the colloid particle. So when these two factors are removed, obviously lyophilic sol can be coagulated. Now this is done by adding an electrolyte or by adding a suitable solvent. Okay. So last part, so that is protection of colloid. So we know that lyophilic sols are more stable than lyophobic sol. Okay, so lyophilic sol, if they are stable, why they are stable? Because of the fact that lyophilic colloids are extensively solvated. Basically, they are surrounded by large number of molecules of water or charged particles. Okay, that is colloidal particles are covered with a sheet. Okay, stealth here means sheet of liquid in which they are dispersed. So lyophilic colloid have a unique property of protecting lyophobic colloids. So when a lyophilic sol is added to a lyophobic sol, the lyophilic particle form a layer around a lyophilic particle. You can see here, okay, this is your lyophobic particle, which is actually protected by a colloidal particle. Okay, so this here is lyophilic colloidal particle. Okay, all these black ones. Okay, so thus it protects the latter from electrolytes. That's why lyophilic colloids used for this purpose, okay, are known as protective colloids also. Okay, so that's the another name. That's it. If you haven't understood anything, we will discuss in our class. So make sure that you go through this and read your textbooks. Thank you.